Well, hello everyone. Welcome back to a new series of Ancast podcasts. This week we've got Hannah Chambers on the line, and she wants to talk to us about engineering. Is that right, Hannah?
Yeah, just as a whole and getting into it and basically my avenue into broadcast engineering.
So where did it all begin then?
Funnily enough, it was when I was still at school, and it used to be a really cheap day out as students to go and see the BBC shows being recorded. It was free tickets, so it's just the price of going up into London. And quite a few of us used to do this on a regular basis. And we saw things like Have I Got News for You, 2 pints of lager and a packet of crisps, that sort of thing. And it was great to watch. And as anyone who's worked in TV knows, that there's a lot of downtime between shots. So there's lots of time to look around, see all the people buzzing around and seeing what they're doing. And that's when it first interested me as a possibility. I hadn't really heard about working in television before that. I'd heard about the classic roles, you know, cameraman, soundman, directors. But I didn't really know who all these people were buzzing around working. So, that piqued my interest. And then I started to pursue it when I was looking at unis. And that's when I heard about Ravensbourne at a university fair and realised that's something that was of interest when I started talking to people.
Yeah, because I guess engineering in general, people think, you know, it's just a load of guys in a basement, basically. What was it like back then, and is there any differences now?
Not that dissimilar, I suppose. When I first started, so I did my course at uni, and I was lucky enough to go straight into a job at QVC, working in their support department. And you do get the classic broadcast engineer. I think everybody knows one, the sort of wizard in the basement who can fix anything and doesn't really like being in the spotlight, you know.
Yeah.
But that was a great learning environment at QVC because the way it operates is the broadcast engineers are running the entire broadcast train from start to finish because they do everything in-house, even their promos. So it's a really unique place to learn. Nowhere else really gives you that kind of exposure to every piece of technology in the broadcast chain.
Yeah, that's right, because it's a shopping channel, right?
Yeah.
And you wouldn't think there was that much tech and that much sort of engineering sort of effort behind it, right?
There's a lot of technology.
And innovation, actually.
Focus. Yeah. And their focus is different to all other TV channels because they're a shop. So there's a phrase there, no L, no sell, which is the graphic, if I could kind of draw it on my picture, the graphic that goes like this, which is generated by Viz when I was there. That's the key to making money, and they can track exactly how much money they're making. And if that L disappears through some technical problem, it's big trouble, you know. So it's got a really unique outlook, but it's a fully fledged broadcasting center, and they do everything that everybody does elsewhere, but perhaps they have more focus on redundancy than other places would because they can track every second of lost airtime to money, unlike a lot of other broadcasters where it's, you know, viewer ratings on a Barb result 2 weeks later or whatever. So it was a really fascinating place to learn the craft, and I was lucky enough to be there when they moved to Chiswick. So I also got to see a project, an installation project, in the same time I was there, and then I moved on to ITV, which definitely fulfilled the stereotype of basement engineers. It was quite an intimidating place to start at. I was the youngest by probably 15 to 20 years, and it was intimidating but great because it was a place where as soon as you prove that you know what you're talking about, no one cares who you are or what you look like. You know, that challenge of breaking the ice and feeling like a bit of an outsider is, once you prove that you can do the work and you have the skills behind you, everybody is fine. There's certainly a bunch of amazing characters that were there. I was there for 6 years, sadly, until the London studios closed. But the things I learned there and the experiences I had on some really high-profile live entertainment shows were fantastic. And the lovely thing about television is I see colleagues on a daily basis, colleagues I work with there, and also colleagues from university. It's a very small industry, so you bump into people all the time, and it's lovely you know, it's a lovely feeling to sort of have friends in lots of places.
Yeah, and I guess is the intrepidation about going into a place like that, is it, you know, that you can prove your worth and you know the tech, because it is, or it was back then, a sort of male dominated sort of discipline, right?
Yeah, I think I was the only female engineer in that department of 16 when I was there, and I believe the previous female engineer had been some years before. So yeah, it was quite an intimidating moment, and I kind of relished it a little bit. It was nice going in and sort of feeling really challenged, but I also felt really well prepared in my technological skills. So I just tried to absorb everything, because the amazing thing about TLS is they had stuff that was straight from the manufacturer that year, and stuff that had been around since before I was born. So they had the vast spectrum of technology, and you could just pick up a particular job and learn that thing inside out and go and fix it. And that was great. You know, I learned a lot about TalkBack while I was there, which is a bit of a black art, but they had, I think, 4 different generations of TalkBack in use just in that building. So I had the whole spectrum, the whole timeline of TalkBack to play with while I was there. So
that's great. But if you've got the passion, right, and you've got a keen interest in the discipline in engineering, then, you know, the world's your oyster, no matter who you are and what direction you want to go. Yeah,
that's very true. Yeah, you've got to go in with the right attitude. I mean, I went in knowing that I probably was going to get maybe more pushback, because I was young, as a female engineer. Like, you kind of go in expecting a little bit more pushback and maybe feeling like you've got to prove yourself a little bit more than you might have had to otherwise. But frankly, that phase was so short, and so I can't even tell you how much of that maybe was just in my own head of imposter syndrome.
Yeah.
Because I didn't really find any real problems. I mean, you always get the characters, you know. There's people who always want to sort of try your patience and stuff. But I've never felt like that I've suffered purely because I'm a female engineer or anything like that. And I think that's because fundamentally other engineers respect skill, and they respect your work ethic, and anything else is ignored if you can do what you say you could do.
Yeah, once you get into your stride, basically.
Yeah. And I think it's more of a boo-boo to say you can do stuff when you can't.
Exactly.
That's the fast track to being you know, to having trouble with colleagues, because
don't overpromise and underdeliver, right?
Exactly. That is a key phrase, I think, in broadcast engineering.
Yeah. And what's, you know, the biggest shifts in engineering? Maybe something like traditional versus IT, or is there any other big things in your career that's gone down? That's
something that I've been seeing since day one, really, and I think my time at TLS did highlight the progression of technology. And now that I'm freelance, and so I'm working on projects at innovative products at places that are either starting from scratch or are upgrading existing systems, and the world of IP has really, really embedded itself in broadcasting, which makes sense because it's cost effective. It creates so many more opportunities, and it's obviously a lot cheaper. Well, in some respects, you know, IT equipment as a whole is cheaper than broadcasting equipment can be. And of course, the pandemic has forced the hand of a lot of broadcasters who might have been a bit more reticent about making that leap. Cloud-based technologies and working from home go hand in hand, but the priorities of an IT product are so different to the priorities of the way a broadcasting product is made that there really is a bit of a clash when it comes to redundancy, security, and just general reliability of the equipment. So there's a bit of a turmoil of cheap and cheerful versus solid as a rock kit. And also just the way that IT works and interacts with broadcasting. So it's a bit of
it's that whole sort of the linear TV. It must be an absolutely stable sort of platform and output. And you tend to find there's a lot of broadcasters who broadcasters who don't want to let go and, you know, push everything into the cloud. There's this still like holding on to like yesteryear sort of thing, right?
Exactly. It's a big leap because you're taking something that is all within your domain. You know, you can lock your front doors and you know no one is getting anywhere near your servers and you can do what you like with them and it's safe. And of course, once you've got part of your system on the cloud, that's now out of your hands and you're relying on another company to look after that, to have security. And as soon as you've opened that door, you need to be able to trust that company, and you can't just slam the doors again because it might collapse your workflow. So it's a big leap, and I honestly don't think we'd be anywhere near as far along that leap as we are now if it wasn't for the pandemic.
Yeah.
Because
and what, you know, people, I guess, workers in the industry now who have got both of those disciplines in traditional and IT, they're the people who must be really on top of the game.
Yeah,
if you can master both of those.
Yeah. People with any kind of security background in IT are invaluable because they understand what to do, what not to do. Because in a broadcasting scenario, especially historically speaking, if you do a load of bodges to get something working on a day within your broadcasting center, you're safe within that center because it's all in-house. You could have done some pretty dodgy things, if you like, just for the duration of that show, and then at the end you unplug it all and it's all back to normal. You start doing that with, you know, web streams and opening ports and disabling firewalls. In the time that your show has been on air, you could have opened yourself up to the world and you wouldn't know about it. Is the scary thing, is that if people have started coming in, you know, detected some open ports and started snooping around your system, you're not going to know until they've started doing bad things to your system or stealing things. They will let you know by being disruptive. So having that knowledge of what to do, what not to do, what you can do to get the job done without compromising things is key. And there's not many people with that crossover. It's very unusual to have that crossover, really. Because they are different disciplines. You know, somebody who's had an IT background and might have had training with Microsoft and things, that they're generally a very long way from the creative end of broadcasting and television. They're quite different avenues. So
and I guess for you, you know, you've probably gone through that, or, you know, you're still sort of experiencing that now. How have you found your sort of ideal role, Hannah? Because, you know, you've been full-time, you've been self-employed, you know, how have you managed to find your sort of ideal spot in the industry?
Well, I've sort of fallen into it a bit. I'd always thought about being freelance, but it wasn't until TLS closed and I was made redundant that I really took that leap, because, you know, there's nothing like being made redundant to sort of give you a kick.
Absolutely,
and it felt like a good time. I felt like I had enough time under my belt to have that confidence. I'd had a crossroads when I first left university to see whether I could go freelance or not, and I just didn't feel like I had the knowledge behind me to have that confidence. But it's also really suited me since I went freelance. I had the advantage because TLS closed. It was quite a big piece of news in the industry, so I had a lot of free advertising just from other people who'd heard about it happening, and a lot of really good friends who gave me work and being involved in some really interesting projects. So I was really lucky and really fortunate. And since then, I've been able to have my son last year, and I was lucky in the sense that I was on maternity leave for the whole pandemic, so I wasn't too heavily affected, but a lot of my colleagues were, and it is a challenge. You know, it's a layer of risk to be freelance, but I actually think that the benefits of being able to choose your own hours, take holidays when you want them, take it or leave it with work, has been really beneficial to me. So it was very sad to leave TLS and to have it closed, but it's been really great since then. And working with the Hawk Media Partnership has given me so much flexibility to be involved in really interesting projects that I otherwise wouldn't have been able to do alone. So as part of the partnership, I've been able to get involved with some great bigger projects, collaborating with everybody. So
yeah, and you know, I think people tend to find that they build up this experience with full-time employment and the sort of security bubble of that, and then take it to the next level and sort of do what they really wanted to do, which is, you know, for a lot of people is the freelance and consultancy route.
Yeah.
Amazing.
It's a scary leap, but I say it's worth it if you find that the hours are either hard, because TV hours are hard. They're long hours. They're usually very antisocial hours, and you can have an extent. You know, if the football goes to penalties, you can't just say, "Oh no, time's up, I've got to go." You're staying. You know, so it is a tough industry in that respect. But I definitely have found freelancers really suited me, and much more than I ever expected it to. And it's not. It wasn't as hard a leap as I thought it was going to be. So I built it up in my head, I think. But it was worth it.
Fantastic. Well, it's been great hearing about your engineering journey, Hannah, and all the best with your future consultancy gigs.
Thank you very much.
That's Hannah from Hawk Media Partnership. Take care, Hannah.
Yeah, bye.